Navigating post-secondary transitions for students with special needs requires careful planning, informed decision-making, and proactive involvement. In this journey, parents, caregivers, guardians, they can be a child's strongest advocate and guide, and their commitment is a powerful force for success. Now, collaborating with organizations that specialize in special education, transition planning, and disability services can provide invaluable assistance in navigating this complex process. Now, as you explore available resources, it is crucial to foster open communication with yourself, your child, educators, professionals, basically anybody who exists in this sphere. And they can help with valuable insights and support. And that's what we're here to talk about. This is the Post-Secondary Transition Podcast. We have conversations around the process of transition for families of students with disabilities. And I'm one of the hosts. My name is Patrick Cadigan. I am a public school special education teacher. And as always, I have a co-host. And who would that be?
And I am Meghan Smallwood, and I'm a public school transition coordinator.
All right. So for those longtime listeners, you know that in our last conversation, we were so excited to sit down with Think College. That whole conversation just opened up so many possibilities. So we are very excited to have Amy Diagotti from University of Maryland TerpsEXCEED program. She is the senior faculty specialist, Center for Transition and Career Innovation, College of Education, University of Maryland College Park. Amy, thank you for coming and sitting and talking with us.
Well, thank you for having me.
We have heard so much about TerpsEXCEED from our families and the interest. So it's exciting to be able to talk with you a little bit.
So let's see. Meghan, how do we start off this conversation?
Well, I think it's helpful just to hear a little bit about Amy in general, if you don't mind, like your background, where you started and how you got to TerpsEXCEED.
Sure. I guess it was kind of a long journey. I did not start out in the field of special education. I was in general marketing. I worked for Adidas in Germany. I worked for the Chicago Tribune, but I grew up with one sibling who has intellectual disabilities and autism. So it was just sort of part of how I grew up. And I kind of realized after a while that it was something that, you know, I was doing stuff on the side after work, supporting people with disabilities. And I thought, well, maybe could be something that I do. So I went back and got my master's in rehabilitation counseling, supported employment, and transition. So I worked for years as a job developer and doing model demonstration programs and working with, it turns out my favorite population was sort of that, 14 to 25 age group as they were transitioning out of high school and into post-high school stuff. For me, was typically helping them, enter their career, doing job development, helping them, supporting them in getting a job and keeping a job. But I remembered that way back in the day after I had gone to college, my brother, who's 3 years younger than me, had said, well, when am I going to college? And my parents were kind of scrambling, like, oh, not everybody has to go to college. It's okay. And, and he had a teacher who just said, you know what, I was sick of the kids who were seniors coming back for 3 extra years as seniors in high school, because that's not necessarily normal. And she moved on to a college campus. So he went off to a community college and had that experience of, I'm going off to college. And it was just something that was always so great for him and great in our family, and something I sort of tucked in the back of my head. Then I started working with Think College, the folks at Think College, and I was doing a lot of the sort of the consulting on employment. So all, college programs are starting and the real focus should be employment, and could I do training on employment? So I did that for years, and then, started working at the University of Maryland on an employment grant. That's how I got hired. And then realized we don't really have this in Maryland. This is a huge gap in services. We do have a lot of those programs for students while they're still in college, the 18 to 21 programs, the community-based transition services that, you stay and you're supported by your local education agency, but you move to whatever community college is in that county, which is great. But there wasn't that option for, you've now graduated, you've left the school system, and like some of your friends and your siblings you apply and you go to college. So it was happening all around us, Delaware and Pennsylvania and New Jersey and Virginia, and nothing here. And now I was at the University of Maryland, the big land-grant state university, working in transition and, employment for people with disabilities. And I thought, this might be the time. This might be, the chance we have to get something started in Maryland.
That's awesome. Like I can relate. My sister, I've talked about it before. Older sister has an intellectual disability, and it was that time frame when I went to college, and she moved out into a group home. But there was never that thought of, well, what about her post-secondary options? It was just kind of, we're going into a day program. You're going to a group home, and she definitely could have been a candidate for a program like this. So
yeah, continuing like lifelong learning for some reason, that population of people with intellectual disabilities, it's like high school's over. And so that
off to work you go. Yeah,
right, exactly.
And it's funny. So the teachers too, I find, still have a hard time. Some teachers in our county have a hard time wrapping their head around college is an option. Because you have parents who will say, I'd really like for them to have that college experience. And I've seen teachers roll their eyes like, what's that going to do? I'm like, no, it's a very strong possibility. You've got a program like TerpsEXCEED. So that's why I know a lot of families that were super excited for it to take off and hear about it.
Well, I will say that when we were having that conversation, I found myself in the middle of it, like asking, like, why? Like, because even in my head, like, that conversation just went in a totally different direction than what I was thinking that it was going to go in. But as soon as I grasped it, it just, like, again, I was like, I just started to go in so many different directions that I was like, yeah, this is something else.
Well, I'm hearing about all the options out there, like you said, outside of Maryland. Like, it's amazing to see what actually is available.
There are over 350 programs, which everyone thinks, oh, I got hundreds of programs. That's so great. There are 45,000 institutes of higher ed across the country. So 300,
we can do better.
A little drop in the bucket, really. But you have to start somewhere,
Exactly. So with that, can you tell us a little bit about TerpsEXCEED, like when it started, how long it's been in place? And
so this fall was our third fall. So our third cohort of students came through. So we started in 2021. So I spent the second half of that COVID year doing planning. So we got a planning grant from the Maryland DD Council, which was really great to get us started. And it was one of those things where, like, here I go. And so I started right away in January of 2021 doing the planning. And I have to say, because it was COVID, part of that might have helped because I was able to meet with everybody that I needed to meet with over Zoom, where I'm not sure I would have been able to get in and meet with, the higher, the whole dean of student affairs and undergraduate studies and Res Life and all those people, if we didn't have the Zoom. Like, people were just expecting they could load up their calendar and I could get on more easily. Yeah. So I spent, a good portion of COVID just talking to everybody I could find at the University of Maryland to say, we're going to get this going and how do we do this? And what was really lovely was nobody said no. Nobody said, you're crazy. Nobody said, what are you talking about? So at that point, our dean in the College of Education was really, there's a big push everywhere, and especially at University of Maryland, for that diversity, equity, and inclusion. Mm-hmm. And my point was, disability is often left out of that. Like, that's really low on that list. And if that's a big mission of the university, it might be, for the College of Ed to step up and make sure that that's a part of it. And she absolutely agreed. And she later became our provost, which was very handy.
Cool.
Yes, which is really helpful as well. So with her blessing, I was able to talk to, the head of Res Life, the head of student affairs, the head of all that. And really their question was always like, how do we do that? Which was great. If somebody says how, I feel like that's really an open door. And most of what I said was, well, what do you typically do? Like, I don't want you to create like a whole side version of college that goes alongside college. It's just college. and we'll provide sports. So however you do it. So it was sort of like, who do you go to for a non-traditional academic unit? They're like,
Mhm.
oh, go to the Office of Extended Studies. I was like, all right, here I go. So it's just like, well, how did you do it with this program? And they would say how they did it. And I'd say, oh, let's do that then, which made it easy. It's not, I didn't want anybody to create something completely different, which is harder work. It's just open the door and let us in to the way it already runs and just let us provide supports as we go.
And that's a lot easier for people to accept when it's already been done in one way. Yeah.
Right. It's already, obviously, this is how it works here. Let's just slide right into that. So that's what we did. We started small so that we could test things out. So we had 2 students. One of them was from your county.
I taught him in high school.
Did you? Oh, yeah.
Yep.
He was wonderful. And he has since been hired at the University of Maryland. So
yes, that's great. He was an awesome kid. He is an awesome kid.
Well, and really what we were looking for, college isn't for everybody.
Right.
And whether you have a disability or not, and University of Maryland isn't for everybody. There's lots of people who go off to college and like this wouldn't apply here because it's 40,000 students. It's pretty urban. It's big. It's a Big Ten school. That might not be the right campus community.
Yeah.
So it has to be somebody who that's something that they're really interested in. And for that particular young man, his entire family went to University of Maryland.
Yeah.
So for him, he had, lived the Terp life this whole time. So for him to become a Terp was something that was super exciting for him. So we started out with the two students, and we had to sort of build and 2 great families that, we said, so your kids are our guinea pigs. Will you hand them over to us? And they said, go for it.
Sure.
So we were sort of building it as we were going, and started with literally had like 7 mentors that were doing training. And we decided to teach a class that was in the disability studies minor. So it was an elective class and it was a small group of students. But I know our department chair was real strong on don't just pick random volunteers to help support these students on campus. That we want accountability and we want people committed to inclusion. And so over time, what we've done is we've built, it's become a large gen ed class we're already full for the spring with a wait list of like 10 or 12 students, and not everybody has registered. So 50 students. And they are trained on how to become peer mentors. And it's a fieldwork course as well. So they have 3 hours a week minimum where they have to provide direct supports to the TerpsEXCEED students, whether it's going to a class with them, whether it's doing the tutoring 4 nights a week, whether it's having a meal with them, it's going to the football game, helping them join a club, whatever is needed. So we went from 7, mentors that first semester with 2 students. When we launched this fall, we had those 2 students have graduated, and we now have 10 students. So 4 are going to graduate this spring, and 6 are freshmen. So 4 seniors. Like they start as freshmen. It's a 2-year certificate program. So they start as freshmen and then they're immediately seniors the next year. So we have 4 seniors and 6 freshmen, and we have 85 mentors, and we have a structure where they take the course for credit. They earn a certificate, a peer mentoring certificate from the College Reading and Learning Association. And then if they want to continue on a semester after that, which would really be great, to sort of build that network, they can become lead peer mentors, and they take a seminar that's not for credit. So they get a stipend for that, and they earn a level 2 peer mentoring certificate, and they're lead peer mentors.
Oh, wow.
And then they stick with us after that. So they earn cords at graduation, just alongside our students, for being peer mentors and for how many semesters they do it. So we have, and they've become a cohort of really tight students that are then really good friends with the TerpsEXCEED students, and their network just keeps building and building and building. So that's been a really lovely thing. They're from majors from all over campus. So it's not like they're all special ed majors. In fact, we have very few special ed majors.
That's even better.
Yeah. Computer science majors, family science, public policy, public health. I mean, name it, we have it.
Wow.
We have football players. We have, if anybody is a Maryland football player, we have Roman Hemby, who's probably going to the NFL. He's a mentor.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So it's really lovely that it's expanding, around campus that way. So it's just been, it's just been a building thing. We're trying to do marketing, lots of word of mouth, and the president actually is very aware of the program. At the beginning of the school year, he asked if he could meet all of the students, mentors, and staff at the student union on the first day of classes, and he brought everyone a coupon for ice cream. Everybody sat around and ice cream for like a half hour and hung out with President Pines.
Oh, wow.
Because it was one of those, it's one of his programs that he likes to highlight and likes to be on top of. So that's really lovely as well.
That's so neat. So, and that was a question I actually had been thinking about. Like, how does it work with the mentors? I didn't know how many there were. It's nice that there's not the same couple. It's such a variety of individuals. And then, I mean, is there a way, like, are the TerpsEXCEED students guaranteed to have a support, throughout all of their day? Is there some kind of tracking to make sure that there's support there for them?
It's not 24/7 support. So
okay.
We always let families know that. So there needs to be a certain level of independence, and they all live in the dorms. Mm-hmm. So they're across 3 different dorms. Some room with other TerpsEXCEED students. We have some seniors who room with friends that they made that are not in TerpsEXCEED. They're rooming with those friends. There isn't that overnight support or one-on-one aid kind of thing. Now we do have families a lot of families who are on self-directed waiver. Many of them have hired additional supports for very specific reasons, whether it is something with the independent living in the dorm or, specific to a class or anything like that. They have used those waiver dollars to hire. We put it out. We have a whole bunch of networks, and it's typically a student on campus, which is perfect.
Yeah, even better.
Yeah. Or one of our mentors who's no longer in the course or something, but is a trained mentor who's then is hired, so that can work. So what we do is we work with the students. They have one course with us as freshmen that first year. So every student has, at University of Maryland has like a, intro to college kind of course that's run through their major. Mm-hmm. And so we have one for TerpsEXCEED students because we really focus on a lot of goal setting and competencies and then just the logistics of being in college. I noticed a lot of freshmen who are not in TerpsEXCEED could use
Absolutely.
There's some cluelessness when freshmen come.
My husband works at College Park, and I hear every August about those freshmen coming in, and he's shaking his head at the freedom that they're embracing a little too much. So
and that happens with our students as well, but it's that's what inclusion is, frankly. So exactly. So we have that one class where we're working on their schedules. They have calendars. We load them up with Google Calendar notifications. We have a huge, massive spreadsheet. It looks like this rainbow spreadsheet that they can also access on their phones. And all of the mentors access that as well. So in the class with the peer mentors, we talk through schedules. And if students they have their courses up there, if they've picked an activity, if they've joined a club, if they want to go to a game, it's all on there. And next to them is a blank thing for all the supports to sign up. So they go through and they sign up to match, and it's with their schedule and students sign up. So these students know any of these mentors at any time, and they sign up, and then they know they have a protocol. They're going to check with them. Mm-hmm. Do you want to bring any friends? Should I bring some friends? And they figure it out. And then the first couple of weeks, it's also, I'll meet you at your dorm and walk you to your class.
Right.
Because they're, getting lost.
Yeah.
By October, I'll meet you at class. They're starting to get to know how to get around.
So the TerpsEXCEED students need to be pretty savvy or aware of accessing their calendar and how to, check.
We spend all the first semester
working
on that. So for those where it's a little bit of a struggle and we have to figure out extra supports, they probably have more direct supports from the peer mentors. Some fade sooner on some things, some on others.
Yeah.
It takes that first semester. It's always a little chaotic, figuring out what the individual supports are and then adapting all their goals to that. Yeah. And all the peer mentors, we spend a lot of time together and in groups and with the lead peer mentors brainstorming, like, this happened. It's a really good strategy. Mm-hmm. Everybody's using the same strategy.
Yeah.
So, and then they do really a lot of fun things. So they had mixed, like the rec teams, sports teams at Maryland are kind of a really big thing, especially for freshmen and sophomores. So any sport possible, they can pull together rec teams. So we've had, mix of mentors and TerpsEXCEED students that did like football, that did soccer, they did volleyball, so they do a lot of really fun stuff. So we have some who are coaching, and then they sign up and do that. So they have really a lot of fun social things as well. And then these are the same mentors who 4 nights a week do 2-hour tutoring sessions with them to support them in their classes. So they're tutors, and then they're just, they literally just hang out. Oh, let's go to the gym. Where, who wants to be on the, the flag football team and all
they're
that.
busy.
They're some, by mid-October, you look at their calendars and it's crazy. And that's a learning curve from high school to college for anyone, in particular students, is how do you manage your own calendar? How do you manage your own schedule?
So I'm hearing those time management skills to practice in school and the calendar skills. I think that's a great skill that they can be practicing prior to getting over there.
Yes, scheduling yourself. And if somebody asks you, hey, are you free on whatever to do this? We have students go, sure.
Yeah.
No, you actually have class then.
Yeah, right.
You have to check the calendar.
Speaking of the classes, though, are they open to take any class that they want based on their interest?
Yeah, pretty much. They choose a course of study, so it's almost like a mini major based on their interests and connecting it to careers. They do take a class in the Career Center. It's run by a career specialist that does a lot of exploration and accesses the whole Career Center. And especially that first semester to try to figure out what they're really interested in doing. They all have to take an oral communication class because all freshmen at University of Maryland have to take oral communication, which is great. Learning to, speak in front of people. It's great for interview prep and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Then they whatever area of interest they're in, we go through and they register like anybody else, and they get advising through the College of Education and pull out classes that typically if they can take them for audit. So that is an option. And they still get a transcript with that, and they still get the certificate at the end, even if it's audited. But the auditing that we do is they go to every class, they take every test, they do every assignment. They're in any group projects. They have mentors that go to classes with them until they don't need that anymore. Some will always need that, and that's fine. And then some have tried and been successful in taking something for pass fail or for a grade if they feel it's, that they can. But the option for an audit is great. So we look at stuff to see if it's auditable. And then we have an academic liaison, once they register, reaches out to every professor just to let them know this is TerpsEXCEED. This is how these are some tips for working with people with intellectual disabilities. And then looking through the syllabus to see how can it be modified perhaps for this student? Like if it's a 10-page paper, can they do a 2-page paper with support? And they register with Accessibility and Disability Services. So if they need extra time on tests, and just like anybody else with disabilities on campus, they get all of those accommodations. We make sure that they're registered and have access to all the accommodations that they need for courses. Awesome.
I like that process of seeing about the modifications being made. I know that's a huge question by parents a lot of times.
Right. Yeah. Because some of the classes that they're taking they're taking psychology class. They've taken everything but criminal justice, psychology, a lot of kinesiology, guys who like sports. Theater was huge.
I bet.
Yeah, for a lot of students. And I'm trying to think there's some classes that a lot of people like. Psychology of happiness. That's one that more than one student has taken. Public policy, sociology, public health. And anything that's
everything's on the table.
Everything's on the table. They have some really cool, interesting nutrition classes, geography classes. We have one young man who's super interested in weather stuff. So he's taking all sorts of weather related, climate change kinds of courses. So there's so many options. That's a really nice thing. University of Maryland, with thousands of classes that we have not had trouble finding.
Oh, that's awesome.
Courses. And if somebody needs more of they're not as academic and they need more of, sometimes theater is more performance, and that's where they really shine, and so we focus on those classes a little more. A lot of them love to take then additional classes in like a hip hop class or a jazz class or, which is fine, and
how many classes do they typically take in a semester?
They're full-time students, so the minimum is 12 credits, which is 4 classes. And, one of those in that freshman years is with us. It's a credit course, 3-credit course. And then the one in the Career Center, and then 2 to start off. It's usually they take the 4 their freshman year, or at least fall. And then those who are really engaged in learning, they can take 5 classes if they want. They can try 1 for a grade and the rest for audit. They can take 5 audited classes and see how that works. So the minimum is 12, but we've had students take, 15, 16, 17.
Is there how do you identify a student that would be good for the TerpsEXCEED program?
Oh, yeah, that's interesting. We're looking for students with intellectual disabilities. That's really what the program is focused on. Somebody who would not be able to go through the typical admissions process and then get a degree at the University of Maryland, but really wants to continue learning, wants to take advantage of everything that's, on campus, has an interest in that sort of college experience, has a level of independence that, if they want to live in the dorms, that they're going to be able to set an alarm and get up, eventually. We provide support certainly in the beginning and showing them how do you, live the dorm life. We have mentors who do a lot of training on doing your own laundry, which they really should do for all freshmen.
All students, yeah.
I've seen some crazy inability to be able to do their own laundry, and it's not our students always. Yeah, so we're looking for students also who have had some experience away from home a little bit. So if they went away to a camp, I think it's hard for any freshman if they've never spent a night away from a family, at all. It's a shock to then suddenly move on to campus. So
that's a good point. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. So, if they've had any sort of experience with that, we look for students who've had some work experience. It's a very career focused program. And so, if they've gone through school and they've had some work-based learning experiences and they've had, they understand a little bit about what it's like to have a job. Because the goal really is that you're getting a better job than if you didn't go to college, which is the same reason anybody goes to college. So we want them to have some, that is a focus and that they've had a little bit of experience with that. And when we tell families, we had 67 families sign up for open house this fall. And we try to let parents know, let them try some things independently, like the calendar, like scheduling something. Because, if you're sick, you don't feel good on campus, you can make an appointment at the health center. Mom's not going to do that for you. So a mentor can help you do that and walk over there with you. But by the time you're graduating, you got to know what that process is. You have to know how to call, how to get online and make an appointment, know that you have to show your UID and do all that, and then walk over and wait for your appointment to go in and get checked. And so we try to, help them in the beginning, but we really expect, particularly by the time they're seniors, if they say, I don't feel good. It's like, well, do you remember what you need to do?
You do.
You have a health center right on campus and you need to make that call. So I think if they come in with a little understanding of, you're becoming an adult and you have to try some of this stuff on your own, I think it won't be such a shock.
And it's just like every other student. It's trial and error. You learn, and you make mistakes, and that's part of life.
Yeah. And in a college, environment is a good place. It's closer to the real world, but it still is a little bit of a bubble there.
Yeah, still a little shelter, but
a lot of, right. You've got your RAs helping.
Yeah.
You've got a lot of people. You're getting up and, then you're going to the dining hall where you have 14,000 options of food. It's not really the real world.
Yeah. But sometimes, and I think it might be harder for some parents to let that happen than the actual students.
Yes.
So
that's why we really encourage living on campus. It's not required, certainly, it wouldn't be required for any college student, but we really encourage it because that's the stuff that, in the evening and in the dorms and hanging in the lounge and doing the rec sports, which they play at 10 o'clock at night, that's where you really feel a part of the campus and where you make the connections and feel like a college student, and where some of the really important life skills are learned. and where we have to step in and say, that's not the best way to make friends, and let's work on a different way with some mentors. That's an important life skill, as well as going to class and doing well in a class.
Yeah,
Absolutely. It's that other life training,
Right. And they have it all there at their fingertips.
All of it. Yeah.
Well, and that I think is a great way to segue into then, if families are interested in TerpsEXCEED, what does the application process look like for them?
It opens every year on December 1st. So it just opened up on our website, and it's an application packet. So they have to complete the packet. Part of that is, rather than an essay, we ask that they send in a video answering the questions that we ask. And they need 3 letters of recommendation, and then attaching, their IEP and transition plan is really helpful, as well as a psychological. We're trying to look for intellectual disability, as a diagnosis, or something that really manifests in the same kind of way. So having their latest neuropsych or psych evaluation is helpful as well. So it's a whole little packet, and it's due February 1st. So we give them a couple of months to turn that in. And then we have an admissions team that looks through it the entire month of February into March. And then we let them know mid-March, and they have to, take some time to decide, because they have to turn in housing applications along with all freshmen by May 1st. Okay. So that's the process.
And I know there's 10 students currently, you had said?
10 current students. 4 are graduating. I think we're going to take this time 6 new. So we'll have 6 and 6 in the cohort. We're like growing it slowly every year. So
yeah, no, that's smart too, to kind of, yeah. I like that. I know you'd mentioned before about self-directed funding with DDA. People could use that like for extra support persons. Are there any other connections you have with DDA or DOORS? Because I'm just thinking about the funding piece, like for classes and things like that. How does that work?
Well, right. And that's what we've taken this time to, that was sort of my thought in starting TerpsEXCEED at this big university, when we have a lot of relationships with DDA and DOORS because of our center, so that we can make something that's sustainable and replicable, because it really should be in all of the institutes of higher ed in Maryland, but you have to start with something. Yeah. I think that's a model. So when we started, it was the families paying the full tuition, room, and board. DDA gives us programmatic funding so that we can help support staff, which is wonderful. And we can't do that forever. So we're working on, it needs to be supported by the state. So we're working on some presentations to the state legislature. But in the meantime, DDA has been very supportive that way. They also pay for those students who are eligible, and usually using their waiver funds, we charge an additional support fee. It's really the only money that comes to the program. Tuition, room, and board, none of that comes to the program. That just goes to the university. So we charge an extra support fee, which currently is $3,750 a semester. And for those who are eligible, DDA has started paying that, because what we do is we really build the peer mentoring program with that money, which is direct community supports, which is what DDA supports. So it makes sense. And we have been working very closely with DOORS. In the beginning, they were paying part of tuition only at the Montgomery County or Montgomery College level, but there's been new regulations that came down from Rehab Services Administration just this past summer, and DOORS has been watching with it because they've been really partnering with us strongly. Now, for those who are eligible, they will pay for some up to full tuition, room, and board.
Wow.
Which is fabulous. That opens up the door for so many families. Yes. Because, I think there's a lot of families that had, 529 plans and savings plans for their kids to go to college, all their kids except their kid with an intellectual disability, because that was never an option. So they don't have savings. So, it's hard for a family to all of a sudden there's this option to whip together the board for 2 years, that's tough. So now there is this option. In addition, DOORS, we partner with DOORS for the career specialist that teaches the career class and does a lot of the internship job development, is actually a staff person of an adult service agency, and is funded through, all the students have open full DOORS VR cases. And so that funding then supports that employment specialist And she's on campus and housed in the Career Center and on campus 3 days a week and really does the follow through. The students have to be in internships, paid or unpaid, for 3 of the 4 semesters. So after that first semester, then they do internships in areas of interest. And some of them find one and then they just grow in it for the next 3 semesters. Some find one and go, I really love that. And we're like, that's great. Good that you know that. And we get a whole different one the next semester.
Yeah, that's why we're here to do that. That's awesome.
Right. Knock out that, learn what you don't like is important as learning what you do like. And then the hope is that in their final semester, they have a paid job. And then, then we support whatever their employment specialist is, where they're going to go for adult services. We work with them to help them find a job wherever they're going to be living.
So that's something else on their calendar, that internship.
Yes, it starts to fill up. They get really busy because,
oh my goodness, yes.
They start out with maybe 5 hours a week, and then we have some students that are 10, 12 hours a week. We have a student who is a student manager with the equipment department of the football team. Did it all last semester. This semester travels with the team.
Oh, wow.
Takes the 14-hour bus to Northwestern, got on the chartered plane to Nebraska, and is going to Nashville for the bowl game.
What an experience. That's so
he
cool.
Is living the dream.
Oh, absolutely.
So but his job, he works really, really hard. They hired him for pay over the summer, and he does training camp, and he works really, really, really hard. And he comes home on these long, like the equipment team has to, to most games has to drive while the team flies because they have all the equipment, and then they come home and then have to unload all the equipment. He's really hard. He's a really hard worker, but Coach Loxley knows him by name.
Yeah.
In the hall, and he gets to eat in the football dining hall every once in a
while.
while.
All the perks. Yeah, seriously.
Players. Yeah. So yeah, he has an awesome internship.
That is so cool.
Well, and then, all right. So playing off of that, as I'm listening to you talk about all this really cool stuff. So Meghan and I always approach it because of course we're the school teachers, right? Like I'm the middle school teacher. Meghan works with the high school kids. So if you were to articulate, how can we, educators, parents, family, how can we best prepare students for all of this while they're in high school? Like what would you throw out there?
I think starting early. I love that it's middle school. I think even in middle school, starting with that career exploration, starting with even extracurricular activities so that they're part of teams. Understand, again, managing your own schedule a little bit, I think is super important. I think because it's an academic program, again, they're auditing and they're getting a lot of support and working toward their level, just understanding appropriate behavior in a classroom and what are study skills, which frankly, I have 2 kids of my own at University of Maryland. And I remember in high school having to work with them on study, like outlining and studying. And like, they don't teach studying in schools anymore. And it's a really important skill if you're going off to college, understanding a little bit of how to organize yourself and time management. If you can start that super early, in everything that they're doing and having a little control over their day and having some consequences for missing stuff on their calendar,
Yes.
A lot of natural consequences on that kids learn really fast. So I think that's really important. But yeah, it's not that we expect them to be able to write a 15-page research paper, but to be able to understand a topic and be able to, with a mentor, say, this is what I want to search. And these are some of the key points. And with the mentor, organizing them in a thoughtful way, and then being able to express that is really, I think, important. And I think that's important on a lot of jobs, even if that's not your job, being able to work with supervisors in an organized way and express your thoughts, I think is a really important life skill as well.
I like how you said control over their day, because I feel like, us as special educators, we want to help. And
Yeah.
we try to help so much sometimes that we overhelp, and then they're reliant on us to tell them what's next and where to go and what to do.
Yep.
So I agree. I think we just need to, a lot of us need to, and families too, need to take a step back and let them show us. And if it doesn't work out or there's a consequence, that's okay.
Right. That's the best way to learn. We tell families, like, if you're doing a family thing on the weekend, let Johnny plan it. If he has to ask you for help, great. And if, you get there and it was closed because he didn't call ahead or didn't look at a website and see the times, and then you go, oh, you put everybody here and it's closed and that was a flop. Well, that probably won't happen again, So it's like, let them take charge of something and don't step in to always fix it.
Yeah.
Agree. It's okay to make mistakes. And that's usually where we learn. And so we tend to realize that the fall semester, I think for a lot of freshmen too, but for our students as well, that's when there's just a lot of natural consequences, a lot of mistakes happening, a lot of, it's an exhausting semester for all of us providing the supports. Yeah. But that's by the time, the students who are seniors, the growth that we have seen, we always remember, we have to remind ourselves when the incoming freshmen come in and we're like, oh my God, how is this happening? We go, they were all that way.
Yeah.
Fall last year. And now they're just growing beyond, it's amazing what they're doing for themselves. And so we don't even know that's happening, that mentors later on are telling us. And we're like, what? You did what? What did they do? And which is great because they don't want me, it's the staff are a bunch of moms. And they don't, we're like big mama bears. They don't want us going to class with them. They don't want us going to, they certainly like us and they'll see us, but they don't want to hang out. And there's certain things they're not going to tell us or do with us, which is perfectly normal. And frankly, I appreciate that. So the mentors are really sort of they'll let us know. They'll let us know if it's coming to a point where, we're really worried about this in like social media and,
yeah,
we're going to step in. But a lot of times they're like, oh yeah, you don't need to know what happened at that party that we had. And it's like, great.
Well, and that's good though, that the mentors feel comfortable and know that they can problem solve with you if something, like you mentioned, social media. I know that has been a big issue as the years go on with oversharing and trust, it's a scary world out there. So it's good that they can go to you and then be that middleman to kind of help because they're closer to their age and they'll probably respond better. And
we do a lot of what is the best strategy for communicating something when you're helping somebody and you're also a friend, but you're a mentor and,
right.
And there's sticky situations and there's, it's hard for students to come from high school. It's a little more protected. And then here they are, and they're in co-ed dorms.
Yes.
And they're, it's over, it's 24/7. And it's really great to have mentors who we work through that. And we have whole class sessions on how do you manage that? Because those are life skills too. You can't go ahead of somebody their entire life and try to explain to everyone around them. They need to understand social cues.
Right.
They need to, and that's another thing that's a huge learning curve at college. That's so important. That doesn't happen. It's like the best place for that to happen.
Yeah, for sure. I would agree. One thing that just came to mind, we talked about the communication, between the mentors, the students. Is there communication between you and the family?
Oh, constant.
Okay.
There is a lot, but there's also that there are things that happen where we've had students say, I need to call my mom and this. And I go, oh, you're a college student. This is not something that, nope, we're going to figure this out without mom. That doesn't need to happen. And, there's stuff that if they have to meet with the RA doesn't call a parent to talk about a situation that happened that they're managing. And so if that's something, it's a whole different communication that's protected. That's FERPA. Like I'll say, if you want to tell your mom that this happened, you can. But I'm not going to reach out to him because you are a college student now. So there's a little bit of that, but we do want to make sure that parents are comfortable, and we always do a check-in, and students have office hours with us. And at the end of, the first semester, we invite families to come in for part of that. And we say, let's tell your parents all the stuff that you have been doing, So there's a lot of communication that way, but there is stuff that happens on campus, that happens in Vegas, that happens in campus, that, if it's a safety thing, if it's a medical thing, obviously, but if it's just a learning curve, and, we do have some students say, oh my gosh, I need to ask my mom about this. And we go, well, let's try to work it out first. This is maybe your mom's not on, going to college with you.
I love that.
Yeah. So, so it's that fine line. We really try to help them come up with the resources and the networks that they have on campus first. And then if it really is something that you need, help from your parents, absolutely. It's not like we're cutting you off from your
right. We're teaching you that you can figure this out yourself, and ties in with that advocacy piece too, which I know we're drilling in them, hopefully in school, that we want to carry over to college. So
yeah, and that's really important. And they can earn, before they graduate, they can actually earn badges in competency areas, and one of them is self-advocacy. Right. And there's leadership, and there's communication, and there's career prep, and there's a whole bunch of projects, independent study projects they work on with mentors in order to be able to earn different badges for when they graduate. So that goes with them with their certificate then as well.
Oh, awesome.
Is there anything else that you would want to throw out there for families that they should know about prepping for post-secondary life? Like if there was 3 tips that you would give families, what would they be?
I think to remind them it's risky to send your kid off to college. Like, I understand that for any parent, for any kids, to let go. There is that dignity in risk. And I always want to say to parents, please trust this process. We have a lot of supports built in here, and it really is a lovely community, but it has to be their community, and they have to try stuff. And I think a lot of our families, we just did a big statewide needs assessment to sort of get an idea of what families are looking for, and K-12 educators and everyone. And they did say they want to have programs that are close to home. So our students are Howard County, Montgomery County, Prince George's County, Frederick, within an hour drive. It doesn't mean that they come. Most of our students don't even go home on the weekends, but just knowing that they're that close in case they need to be, that's made them comfortable. That's another argument for us to be able to spread that, there should be one in Frostburg. There should be one in the Eastern Shore. There should be one in Salisbury, because, it's a really far transition for families, and they want to be comfortable. So it's like, you can know that you're nearby if you need to be here. Most likely we don't need you to be here. We haven't had any situations where it's been an emergency and called parents. To let them really have that dignity of risk, I think, is something. And in order to do that, though, I say, be planful about it. So you'll be more comfortable. We say to parents, you are more comfortable if you've tried something with them, you've seen them pull up their calendar, they've taken a public transportation, that they've had to learn a task, and then they've shown it to you, so that that when they come to college and we're going to try something new, they really have that ability to do that. So I think that's another thing. It's just to be planful and let them try stuff while you're watching. Because sometimes parents go, I don't think that they can do that. But if you've seen them do that, you're going to say, I know, it's okay. I'm going to let them go. So I think that's it. And then just to support the students, because they're going to be trying a bunch of really new kind of cool things, and just to let them go ahead and try, even if they're like, I don't know if that's something he's going to like. Okay. Let him learn that on his own, let him try and learn. So I think it's just that being planful, and then it's okay to be a little uncomfortable with this. And I come from a family where I have one brother with intellectual disabilities. It's my only other sibling. And I've seen my parents go through all this. And my brother did a community college kind of program. And, we find out later that my mom was like dressing in a disguise, glasses and a scarf and whatever, to follow him everywhere. Until one time at table, he's like, well, Mom, when she wears a scarf and these weird glasses. And we were like, Mom, seriously? You gotta let go, so I understand coming from the family side that's the instinct to do that. And we spent years pulling her away from stop putting on disguise. He saw you, Mom. Don't be ridiculous.
He knows you're undercover.
Right. So I see that in my own family, how hard it is to let go, and that you have to help them pull away. And so I think college is great for that. I think it is, because it's not quite the full real world. It's still a bit of bubble. Plus, I think a lot of families, if they have siblings, parents understand college. You know, they know what happens there. It's not that much of a mystery. I think the mystery was, I didn't think my kid with an intellectual disability could ever do this. Mm-hmm. But then you kind of go, well, why? Especially at a big campus like University of Maryland, every kind of person, everybody finds their people. Mm-hmm. There is a group, there's over 720 clubs on campus.
Wow.
There is something for absolutely everybody. It's perfect that way.
Amy, if parents were interested in more information about TerpsEXCEED, where would you send them?
We do have a website that has webinars that we've done, a lot of information. It's got a lot of pictures. We update with pictures of all the, there's an intro video. And if you just Google TerpsEXCEED University of Maryland, it'll pop up and it'll take you to the website. And that's where the application is. And we have a very specific email that if anybody has any inquiries, send it right to that email and we get back to people. I will talk to parents all the time. If they want to set up a phone call, I get a lot of nervous parent conversations. And that's fair. And I appreciate that. And I get a lot of parents now who are asking, my child is a freshman or a sophomore. What should I be doing for the next couple of years? And that's a great question. Mm-hmm. And we let them know. So, and it's unfortunately a competitive application process because we're the only one in Maryland and we're just starting. So, we get like 30 applications for 6 slots. And I hate that. So we are trying to expand. We're going to go for some grant funding so that what we can do is replicate a similar model. Towson and Frostburg and, community colleges and UMES and Salisbury. And I think it should be a network of programs so that students with intellectual disabilities have a choice to apply to the campus that best matches their personality, which is what everybody else gets to do.
I was going to say, every other college student gets to, visit and research and decide which ones they want to apply to. So it'd be nice to have the same for them.
Yep, absolutely. So that's the ultimate goal. Because now, they can go out of state and stuff, but a lot of times that's expensive.
Yeah.
So we're trying to make it very reasonable and partner with all of our state agencies for in-state students so that we have that. And we really are trying to focus on Maryland students because they haven't had this opportunity, affordable opportunity for so long. So we really want to give that to in-state residents. And then over time, when we have all these, if out-of-state residents want to come a Terp, love that too.
Yeah.
Fantastic. All right. Well, I'll tell you what, I think that is a great place to stop. Amy, I can't thank you enough for coming and talking with us.
Thank you guys. Yeah, I love this program. It's the best job I've ever had. It is the most fun. So, I'm just thrilled that the word is getting out and that we can build it.
Well, I've said it before and I'll say it again. That conversation was amazing. And I'm continuing to wrap my head around this prospect. And it was not, the conversation started with Think College and it just keeps going. And it's amazing what's out there.
Yeah, it's amazing the work that Amy and them have done. And just to see it blossoming, I can't wait to see in a couple years how much it's expanded because I know it will. There's just a high demand and they have such a fantastic program. So
yeah, and just all the information and the structure and just all of the the willingness to share out. It was just really, really great. So I'll tell you what, we're gonna kind of cheat a little bit this week, and we're gonna say that we're gonna make the TerpsEXCEED our That's Helpful resource because, gosh darn it, it is just really helpful.
Yes, very much so.
All right, Miss Meghan, you want to sign us out?
All right. Well, as always, we appreciate you being here and listening. So please follow this information from this conversation and our other conversations in our show notes. Follow, and please share out the podcast. Check out our YouTube channel because we have videos of all our conversations, including doing some of that legwork for you by curating videos of topics that revolve around transition. We have playlists that cover guardianship, alternatives to guardianship, able accounts, and still more to come. So be sure to subscribe there as well. And of course, please check out our website, which is chock full of information around the transition process. And you'll also find our contact information there. So please go to www.postsecondarytransition.com.
And just as a real quick, I am going to throw out one more time. The website continues to be quote unquote under construction, or at least a work in progress. We're working on a few new pages, and that is making us have to think about shifting where some of the existing pages are. But it's a work in progress, but the information is still there. So definitely go check it out. All right. Whew, another one in the bag, and we still have more to come.
Always lots in our brains, isn't there?
All right, brilliant. Well, we're going to sign this one off. Thank you guys for listening, and
Yes.
we'll talk with you soon.
Thanks, everyone.